Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here, and today, guys, I have a very awesome 2v2 for y'all. So I'm going to be playing with Clan ZEVA. So I'm actually going to be playing with Hazard, and we're going to be playing against Risky and Count Orlok. So definitely going to be a good time. I'm playing the Greenskins. My ally is going to be playing the Wood Elves, and we're going to be facing off against the Warriors of Chaos and Bretonnia, who've randomly decided to ally for this matchup, but we'll see how things are going here. So as far as my army composition goes, over here, I do have the Morgrub's Mangy Marauders, who I actually really like here, because again, in 2v2, guys, whenever you guys are playing in these type of situations, you kind of need to look at, obviously, both of your opponents and have a somewhat balanced army that can fare well against either of them, because actually, in a lot of 2v2 matches, what you end up seeing is, one person, for example, will deploy across from, one guy here and then one here and one here. So that's very typical. Most people don't like to deploy together, but Hazard, my ally, actually had a really good idea. He's like, hey, let's take advantage of the Wood Elves missile fire and, kind of the defensive capabilities of their spears on the flanks. And then, of course, use the Treekin, to support my Savage Orc front line and just kind of make like a single, mobile force here. So we actually, deployed together here, and it seemed to work out really well because, again, most people on 2v2 ladder or anywhere that you see 2v2 games are going to deploy separately. So pretty cool stuff. So for my army composition, I did a very savage build. So I actually have a front line of mixture of Black Orcs to deal with the Foot Squires. Granted, Savage Orcs can actually beat Foot Squires themselves. But again, I thought the Black Orcs were a pretty good investment simply because, one, they're immune to psychology. So that's going to be very good against any sort of monstrous units or Beakus or anything really that our opponents could bring to the table, especially with Chaos. So having that immunity to psychology and that heavy armor piercing against Chaos is going to be really solid. So front line of Savage Orcs mixed in with some Black Orcs. On top of that, I do have the Rusty Errors and some Goblin Archers, Night Goblin Archers to be more specific. And then back here to protect them, guys, this is something that I really like, is using Nazi Skulkers, because again, they're invisible. So a lot of times your opponents are going to assume that these guys are fresh meat. They're an easy target, so any flying units can just dive them, no problem. But if you have a group of Nazi Skulkers, they do have armor piercing. So again, they can trade somewhat effectively with, your traditional kind of flying lords. I mean, they're not going to do great, but they can do damage to them. And they also do have this awesome smoke bomb ability. So if you guys take a look here, 76% speed debuff, which really allows your other units to, catch up and punish them. In the back, I do have some Orc Boy Biggins. I have 3 Goblin Big Bosses, and then, of course, Big Papa Wurzog, who... The one issue with bringing him on his mount here is that you don't get to see him dance, but man, he is just so freaking cool. And Effigy of Daget is one of the best abilities in the game. It is incredibly strong. So I do have the Hammer of Gork, and that's pretty much it for my army. So for my ally here, he actually decided to bring some War Dancers with the Azurai Spears, which are going to be very good at dealing with Bretonnian Cav. They have anti-large, they have armor piercing, so they're going to do well versus Knights of the Realm, all those type of units, whatever our opponents decide to bring. And they're a pretty good choice against Chaos as well, who does bring Chaos Knights. It's actually becoming a bit of a thing in the meta to see Chaos Knights. So pretty good choice from Hazard's part here. He also does have some Glade Guards with the Hagbane tips. Pretty good at shutting down Forsaken. Solid against Bretonnian infantry too, because Bretonnia against Greenskins and against Wood Elves is probably going to bring battle programs and units like that, so they're going to be a pretty good choice. And aside from that, he does have a Tree Man here. He has another one over here, and he does have Big Popper Durthu with the Sword of Daith and the Flock of Doom. So pretty cool little unified army we have here, and I'm pretty excited to show you guys how it performs. So let's get right into our opponent's builds. So I believe this was Count Orlok. So he has a front line of Chaos Marauders, which I actually like. In this particular situation, they're going to trade somewhat well with Wood Elf Infantry, and for how cheap they are, they actually do well against Eternal Guards. Not like great, and I feel like they're a far inferior unit, but still, they can do their thing. In the back line, he does have some Forsaken who will do very well against Savage Orcs, and they're going to do very well against the Wood Elves. The one thing that the Forsaken are going to struggle with is once their Frenzy buff, let's go ahead and zoom in here. So Frenzy gives them attack damage and immunity to psychology, but once that wears off, the Tree Men are going to terrify a lot of these units here. It's definitely going to be very tough. He does have Aspiring Champs. He does have some Halberds as well, which again I think are pretty good. The one issue with Halberds is they're very tough to maneuver and get in position, because again they're very slow with 28 move speed base, I believe, and it's just a lot of times when you're trying to get them in the right place, they get tied up with the wrong units, and I feel like they're a little bit clunky, but still a good choice on paper, because again Chaos doesn't have a ton of options, but still Halberds can't complain. They're armored. They'll trade okay with my infantry, especially against Savage Orcs, and they'll do well against big scary Tree Men as well. So on top of that, he does have the Lore of Shadows back here. I'm definitely a huge fan of that. And let's go ahead and see what he brought. So definitely getting funny here with the Enfeebling Foe. And something that's cool about Enfeebling Foe, guys, is it has a 24-second cooldown, and the duration is 24 seconds. So if you really want to shut down a single unit, you can just be really aggressive and just constantly keep it, up to date on top of a Durthu or something like that. And it can be very effective. Still, I don't know if I would bring it like in competitive matchup, but it's worth experimenting with. And he does have the Mind Razor, so definitely looking to do some burst, most likely with some of these Chaos Knights, which I believe he has back here. Yes, he has a very, very scary Shock Force here. So he has 2 Chaos Knights with lances. These guys do have higher weapon strength than their other variant with the swords, but again, they do have lower sustained combat stats, but still a very strong unit. And if you actually do an overcasted Mind Razor on these guys, they can hit like absolute trucks, and they can run down Bretonnian infantry, and definitely will have no problem with the Greenskin boars. So lastly, he does have a Chaos Lord with filth and potions and some Warhounds. For our Bretonnian ally over here, who I believe was Risky, he does have some Grail Guardians. So very, very cool seeing these guys make an appearance. Check them out, man. They look freaking awesome. But these guys are very, very good against infantry. So again, against Savage Orcs, they will struggle a little bit against what the Wood Elves brought to the table, because again, Eternal Guards will trade very well with them. The Azrai Spears will trade well, but if he's able to get these on, my infantry, my Savage Orcs, and charge my Black Orcs, he could do some massive damage. So very, very cool choice there. He does have King Lewin on a regular ground mount, which you don't see terribly often, but again, he might have been fearing some repercussions from an Air Force that the Wood Elves might have brought, but still, I really like seeing the Lords on the ground here just to simply ride around with their cav and lead them in battle. So aside from that, he does have some Men-at-Arms mixed in with Foot Squires. Again, Foot Squires can be really good. They're going to trade well with most Greenskin infantry, but Savage Orcs guys beat Foot Squires straight up in a 1v1 for 200 resources less. So on top of that, he does have some Peasant Bowmen here, and it looks like he does have the Pox Arrows here. And of course, he does have 2 Grail Guardians, or was that another? So he has 2 Grail Guardians. Oh, Grail Guardians, Knights of the Realm, and then Grail Guardians and Knights of the Realm. So a little bit of a mix here. So he also does have the Lore of Life. So pretty good stuff here. But let's get right into the business, guys, and hopefully you enjoy this awesome 2v2 game. So it was a pretty interesting situation, and I think it caught our opponents a little bit off guard that we deployed together, because you can see the Bretonnian player is having to like scramble to get over here. And it looks like my ally Hazard is using his Glade Guard, and he also does have some Way Watchers. So doing some very, very good sniping over here, getting a little bit of HP damage on those guys right out of the gates. But the Chaos player is going to get hit by a lot of infantry here real quick. So it's going to be tough for him to deal with, and hopefully the Bretonnian player can get there, in time. Because Savage Orcs, when, you put them against Marauders, they're literally designed to fight against Marauders. And you can see these Marauders getting picked off by some of the arrow fire. And man, the charge of these Savage Orcs is just going to be absolutely devastating. So on the front line, that Savage Orcs looked like he did like a somersault. A little decapitation, but you can see it's going very, very badly for these Marauders in the front line. But still, let's go ahead and take a look at the initial burst. And yeah, you can see that's a pretty favorable trade for us. And also the Wood Elf Missile Fire is pressuring these Chaos Halberds in the back line and is doing really, really huge damage. And a lot of the Bretonnian troops still are quite a ways away if you look in the distance here. So still, the Chaos Knights are coming around the flank. It's going to be applying a ton of pressure, but Hazard did a very, very good job of getting these War Dancers and just kind of mirroring our opponent's movements. But the Chaos front line is definitely in a very, very dicey situation here. You can see they're taking missile fire from all fronts, and it's getting pretty wild, guys. So let's go ahead and put it back to normal speed. One thing was, the Bretonnian player did have a very, very scary cav force, and we definitely didn't have the resources in terms of mobility to defend this Hammer of Gork. So it already got 13 kills. We figured, it's paid its dues. It's going to have to pay the iron price here in just a moment. So some of these Chaos Knights are coming around the flanks. You can see that some Savage Orcs were able to cut down some of these dogs here. Definitely a pretty good trade for us. But the Chaos Knights are lining up, guys, and it's going to be pretty wild over here. So the Chaos Knights do come in here. You can see some Forsaken pushing around the flank, but we're able to get a pretty good charge with these Orc Boars in here and just hit these guys. And the Orc Boars will trade very, very well. So it looks like that Big Papa Durthu does get a really solid Flock of Doom. So very, very well played. But the Bretonnian Knights are coming around the flank, guys. They're pushing in on some of these Way Watchers, and they have that anti-infantry. I don't know if they have an ingrained anti-infantry bonus, but man, they're just going to, have their way with some of these Wood Elves here. So very, very well played by the Bretonnian player, getting that nice flank here. But thankfully, some of our nasty Skulkers are able to chase in there, and, they'll do a little bit of prison shanking, and a Foot of Gork goes down and just absolutely devastates these Knights of the Realm. So you can see the Knights of the Realm and these Grail Guardians lost about half of their models. I don't know about models, but half their HP, and took some serious losses from that Foot of Gork. So definitely a very, very solid initial engagement there for Big Papa Wurzog. And a lot of these Wood Elf troops are relatively safe, but these Knights are going to keep kind of riding through and definitely doing some skewering. So we're having a little bit of issues in the back line, but these Goblin Big Bosses are trading pretty well. You can see that the Knights of the Realm are down to 34 models, have taken some pretty good HP damage, and Wurzog, of course, is riding around providing his War Paint, so that 12% resistance to a lot of my troops, which is quite nice. Because again, Knights of the Realm don't have magic damage. Also over here, the Chaos Lord is doing pretty well, but again, fighting Durthu is a very, very tough proposition. Durthu is one of the better duelists in the game. He's very, very good at, he can actually beat Kolek, I think, straight up, but again, it goes like kind of back and forth. But you can see that Count Orlok is actually using the Withering, or the Enfeebling Foe, just on non-stop on him, which again, increases the duration with upgraded effects. So very, very good stuff for mitigating Durthu's damage here in the front line. But as far as the rest of the troops go in the front, you can see a lot of the Chaos troops are getting cut down by the Greenskin Wood Elf forces, but the Bretonnian troops have now collapsed on our flank. But this is really the epicenter of the battle. You can see these Orc Boars here are taking a beating. Wurzog's in a little bit of a scary situation, as the opponent's King Lewin did use his Sword of Corone here and was able to push back a lot of our troops, but the 3 Goblin Big Bosses are doing very, very, solid work here, performing, putting these Chaos Knights down. And then we also do have some infantry kind of mixed in. The Rusty Arrows kind of got caught up a little bit by some of these lances, and you can also see the Nasty Skulkers coming in here. Nasty Skulkers are just one of the best utility units that the Greenskins have. That slow is just extremely powerful. And you can see they're getting in here, they're doing some prison shanking, and we also do have the Azurai Spears, and they're going to cut these Chaos Knights down, which is a very, very cost-effective trade for us. So let's go ahead and take an overhead view and just kind of survey things, because again, it's a very, very close battle with a lot going on. So over here, some of the Bretonnian troops were able to isolate some of these War Dancers, but the War Dancers still traded very well and were able to do well against Grail Guardians, which are a very, very expensive unit. Over here, the Tree Man, again, very resilient against these infantry, because again, they do have armor piercing, but still the Tree Man is going to hit like a truck and is doing some pretty good work. And, their leadership is going to start to tank, and they could potentially be terror routed, which again is something we're really, really looking for. So over here, the Lore of Life, and, again, these Grail Guardians and just this Bretonnian mobile forces continue to ride around and cause havoc. But a lot of our infantry, like these Savage Orcs with the Fists of Gork here and Wurzog coming in here, are actually chasing them down and are starting to wear them down through straight up attrition. So pretty good trade. And also the Savage Orcs on that same coin are doing very, very well against the Foot Squires this battle. You can see some of these Foot Squires getting their heads cut off. Pretty solid trade for us. And, I think that Foot of Gork was obviously a very, very essential component to our success henceforth. And also Big Papa Durthu, look at him. Look at Durthu and his Treekin, bro. They're just sitting here, just stomping the yard. They don't give a shit that these guys have halberds. They don't care. They got branches. They're all business today. And man, he just cleaves 3 of those halberds in one swing. That is incredibly cool. And you can see they're actually wavering here. So the Treekin doing a very, very good job. We were able to do some massive shock against the Chaos Warriors prior to the Bretonnian players' arrival. So over here, you can see the Chaos Sword is surrounded by Black Orcs. He's definitely having a pretty bad time. There's also some Eternal Guards in here who, again, do have anti-large and armor piercing, so they're all going to do massive damage. And you can see his HP is dropping very, very rapidly here. So pretty good situation for us. A lot of the Chaos troops have essentially been routed. You can see some Rotters coming back, but still, we have a pretty pertinent, Bretonnian force over here who's causing a lot of problems for us. So over here, you can see King Lewin and the remainder of his goon squad, this Damsel, are doing pretty good work. They're taking a little bit of fire over here from some of these Glade Guards with Hagbane tips, but these Bretonnian Knights are definitely going to do a pretty good job, and you can see they're just going to lance the last of these boars. He's cheering. I don't know why. He's definitely about to get lanced down here pretty hard, but it's okay. It's okay to be hyped, but yeah, you can see as soon as he finishes cheering there, he actually gets skewered by that Knight of the Realm there, which is pretty great. But we still have a pretty scary little goon squad. We have some Goblin Big Bosses who are hot in pursuit. You can see he gets a nice little charge there and takes out one of those Knights. Wurzog's also scurrying around on his pig, doing his thing, Effigy of Daggett has been very, very useful this game. I haven't been able to really show you guys how effective it's been, but we were actually able to trap King Lewin earlier and do some good HP damage, as you guys can see, and things have been pretty good for us. But the Chaos Lord is now punished off the battlefield. Durthu and his Treekin bro are just having a field day against the Warriors of Chaos over here. And the Halberds, they were tied up for a lot of the battle against like Savage Orcs and some of the Eternal Guards, so they weren't able to get great surrounds until they were really beaten up already. So over here, this Durthu and the guys are able to chase him off. You can see Wurzog's chilling over there, definitely looking for some help. But as far as the infantry battle goes, it was very atrocious and very, very close. You can see we have some Savage Orcs over here, about 55 models. We have some Black Orcs coming in here who are going to get a nice charge and definitely slay some of these guys. These peasants are not in for a treat here. As Black Orcs hit like trucks, and they're going to do a very good job polishing off the rest of these Foot Squires. Though Foot Squires trade well, you can see they're actually broken and terrified due to the Tree Man over here, which is absolutely great stuff. So the Tree Man actually very, very good performers this game. I don't know if our Bretonnian opponent, I'm trying to remember the name, Risky, I don't know if he brought a Grail Reliquary, but I think he must have, because again, it's a pretty good pick, with all these kind of terror mechanics. But again, I guess you wouldn't expect. A lot of Wood Elf competitive builds actually don't bring, Tree Men. They'll rather just spam Eternal Guards, use missiles, and like a Glade Lord with the Prey of an Othrama. But very, very cool build from Hazard here. I mean, cool builds from everyone. Pretty dynamic stuff. But you can see these Knights are coming in for a desperate last stand, trying to charge down some of these Savage Orcs. Doing a pretty good job, because again, with that charge, they have an incredibly high charge bonus. But they weren't in the Lance formation there, but still, 68 charge bonus is more than enough. And again, the effort you put into micromanaging it a lot of times often isn't worth it. But we get a very nice smoke bomb here, which actually is able to trap them. You can see their speed. Did it even get slowed? It looks like their speed is still 75. Yeah, that Knight of the Realm is down to 18 speed. So they're trapped, and they're taking some pretty massive losses right now. You can see they're down to 10 models, and we get a little surround. We have a Goblin Big Boss. We have some Eternal Guards here. And these guys, they're actually still confident, because again, there are a very, very elite cav, the Grail Guardian. So again, they're not going to route quickly, and they're doing some very good cycle charging, just running down the remnants of our infantry and making it very, very tough. And if you guys look, even despite the circumstances of having lost a lot of the Chaos Warriors troops, there's still, the balance of power is somewhat even, slightly in our favor. But unfortunately for our opponents, we still have a really, not healthy, but a pretty solid little contingent of troops here. So right now, Hazard and I decided to kind of form up a bit of a Death Star, and we were essentially just waiting for the effigy of Deget. Because once that happened, in conjunction with the 3 tree men we still have, so we still have this tree man who's confident, it's going to be very tough to take these down for Grail Guardians, who again, they don't have like anti-large, they don't have like heavy armor piercing, so against the 100 armor of these tree men, who also do have natural physical resistance, although they do magic damage, I think, so that's not that big of a factor there. It's a very close battle though, so you can see they're doing a very good job kind of just chasing down some of our troops. They actually do still have some foot squires and some peasants over here who are just about to run out of ammunition, so that's a little bit tough. So let's see, the Chaos Warriors do have some Marauders coming back, but aside from that, I'm trying to look on the landscape to see. Doesn't look like a whole lot. So right now it's kind of a mixture of Hazard and I's forces, some Black Orcs, some Savage Orcs, but man, these trees are just so thug life. And of course, Wurzog just riding around on his pimp pig, doing his thing, and we're just waiting for that effigy. As soon as King Lewin comes into a vulnerable position, or that damsel, the Lord of Life, we're just going to get in there and get down and dirty, especially with these 3 trees who can just lay some serious smacking. So we're able to catch up with the last of these Bretonnian infantry. And the Greenskins are definitely going to put these guys away because, again, they don't have the support of any elite troops, and we have these giant trees coming in. We have Wurzog sitting right here, and if we take a look, guys, Wurzog's War Paint, it's a very, very good buff. So, again, in close battles like this, it gives 12% damage resistance, which is really, really solid. So he's actually hitting all these troops right here and, really, really making this battle a pretty safe cleanup for us here. So these foot squires shatter, but again, guys, it is not over. Bretonnia still has a very, very scary cav force over here. Knights of the Realm, he has some Grail Guardians. King Lewin is in perfect health, but we do have quite a bit, quite a scary blob here. So we're going to get this last stand here for the Bretonnian Grail Guardians and the Knights of the Realm, but the tree is coming in here. He's going to stomp the yard. You can see he swipes some of those knights, but they get a nice little charge against some of these Savage Orcs. So just an absolutely wild battle. And you can also see we still do have a Branch Wraith back here, which is in really good shape, giving us that 6% move speed. But King Lewin does come in here, and he is just waiting for that effigy. So as soon as he kind of gets in position, you can see we use the effigy of Deget, locking him down. And guys, it's time. You can see all the trees just coming in to feast. They're definitely hunting for that King Lewin business. And Big Papa Durthu also smells blood. So they're coming in here. King Lewin is starting to take a bit of a beating, and he cannot move. So Durthu, he hits like a truck. I actually used the Fist of Gork on him to give him weapon damage and melee attack. And look how hard King Lewin is getting just chunked out by these 3 trees. So this is just an incredible trade, and he is shattered with the Sword of Daith on top of that and the Fist of Gork. It is just too much for King Lewin, as gangster as he is to handle. And of course, you can see Wurzog coming in here to gyrate his hips at him. So very, very good stuff. Very well played to everyone. That was just a solid, well-rounded game. And it was pretty cool. Initially when we were in the deployment zone, I was actually on Skype with Hazard, and he had the idea of like deploying our forces together, and it actually worked out really, really well. And I think that was one of the reasons we were able to do a ton of shock damage to Chaos before the Bretonnian front line was like able to come out and help. But still a very close game for sure. So if we look at the Wood Elf forces from Hazard, we can see that, these Weight Watchers got 127 kills. Now, I wasn't able to really focus on them in the game, but man, big performers. But guys, he just had the straight up thug life tree composition, which was incredibly useful this game. And very good against the Bretonnian foot squires too, because, the Bretonnian infantry, I would have liked to see some battle pilgrims, but still against the trees, they were actually really good because a lot of Bretonnian players don't necessarily bring missiles anymore, or, any substantial pressure against large targets. And also on that same coin, the Knights of the Realm, they have anti-large, but they don't have armor piercing. And with the physical resistance and the 100 armor of the Treemen, the Knights of the Realm aren't going to do that great against them. So pretty interesting stuff there. I think the Royal Pegasus Knights would have been a pretty good choice there. As far as my troops go, great performance from Savage Orcs. They're just such a good unit now. I really like the fact that they got buffed. And if you keep Wurzog nearby, they actually have a 44% resistance cap, which is pretty incredible. So, the Goblos kind of got hammered down a little bit, but still they did a little bit of okay damage against Chaos in the beginning. As far as risky stuff, the Foot Squires perform well, but man, his Cav Force, even though getting that massive Foot of Gork in the beginning, Risky was able to do an outstanding job of microing them, even after losing like half of them within the first 2 minutes of the battle. So very, very well played to Risky. Obviously, everyone here, pretty great player. So let's look at Count Orlok. So some of these Marauders actually 31, 25 kills. The Chaos Knights, they got a little bit of rough engagement, but still, he took a very, very heavy shock engagement from us. Because again, he was taking that Wood Elf missile fire, the shock from my infantry, and my Gobbo missile fire on some of his high value units before the other player was able to get there and kind of get in position. So that was very tough, but despite all that, he put up a very, very good fight. I really like the fact that he used the Chaos Sorcerer with that constant enfeeblement, was just using that on Durthu all day, because again, that Chaos Sword would have gone down much quicker if not for that. So I don't know how effective it is, but it's something definitely to worth exploring, and very, very good stuff. So very well played to the ZEVA clan, and to Hazard, Risky, and Count Orlok. That was an absolutely awesome game, guys. Thank you for inviting me, and look forward to playing with you guys more. So hope you guys all enjoyed that. Have an excellent night, and more content coming soon.